What do you get when you combine the platforming of Crash Bandicoot with the stealth of Metal Gear Solid? Well, an anomaly of a platformer called Sly Cooper. Back then, I'd always heard of the series, but it wasn't until 2009 I picked it up. To this day, I must say that it still holds up. But I'm getting ahead of myself, aren't I? Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus was released on November 2nd, 2002 by the young company Sucker Punch Productions. The only other title they had made at the time was Rocket Robot on Wheels for the N64. Luckily, Rocket was greenlit by Sony. Sucker Punch officially became Sony licensed. It was then that they made their next game, Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. And boy, was it a bit on the underrated side. I mean, just look at this. First glance, Sly Cooper does not look like a very impressive game. In fact, it very much reflects that of Crash Bandicoot at an initial glance. However, this game does have a lot of really subtle innovations here and there. Sly Cooper has a similar atmosphere with a unique art style like it came straight out of a comic book. The presentation is very much the strongest aspect of Sly, and this especially comes with the fact of the story. Normally, a lot of 3D platformers have stories that tend to mainly serve as a framing device. However, Sly Cooper takes a different approach to this by taking a darker route. He is the heir to inheriting the Thievius Raccoonus, which is like the book to learn all the different master abilities of being a thief. Unfortunately, 5 villains known as the Fiendish Five break into the Cooper home, murder Sly's father, and steal a Thievius Raccoonus. Wow, so much for the E rating. Sly eventually gets transferred over to an orphanage where he grows up with his 2 best friends, Bentley and Murray. Together they form their own gang and become determined to steal back the Thievius Raccoonus. So the story isn't what you'd expect from a 3D platformer. There's murder, there's revenge. Honestly, it really is something that this game was able to get away with an E rating. However, if there is one thing that Sly Cooper does well, it's balance. Along with the darker elements, there's the anthropomorphic humor that comes along with these kinds of games. Certainly, the colorful cast of characters is what helps this game's presentation. We have Sly. He's a bit of an egoist when it all comes down to it. He's willing to put on the line anything in order to steal back his family heritage. However, there is also the sense that he kind of looks down on Bentley and Murray. Just listen to this line.
Murray, part-time driver and full-time burden. Together we...
Of course, it could be highly suspect that Sly is trying to overcome the trauma of the murder of his father. Bentley, on the other hand, is the intelligent turtle that talks in a very bombastic way as if he's trying to come across as smart instead of actually being, smart.
See that machine wheel? If my knowledge of mechanical engineering serves me right, applying significant rotational torque to achieve maximum velocity will yield a positive result.
You mean something good might happen if I can get the wheel to spin fast enough?
Isn't that what I just said?
Here's Murray, who is the dumb hippo that serves as the driver for the van. He doesn't really get to do much, however, there's something endearing about him. He does show signs of bravery, like when he tries to make a run for it for a key. Both of these characters develop a lot more in the later games. Finally, among the main cast, you have Carmelita Fox. She is the inspector that wants to put Sly behind bars, but they have a thing for one another. Overall, she is one of the better characters, but I can't stand her voice actress.
Dinner, a little dancing. I think I can help you out.
A dining in jail.
Nah, I hear the service is lousy.
Once I catch you, you'll know.
Now, of course, the villains have their own share of time as well. The Fiendish Five members all have their own backstories, stereotypical of comic book villains. There is Rowley, the Frog, typical rich guy that turned to crime. Mugshot, bullied kid that watched too much gangster drama to the point he became influenced by it. Ms. Ruby, voodoo priestess rejected throughout childhood and turned to villainy, and a panda king, a rejected fireworks pyronician that wants revenge on everyone that turned their backs on him. It is kind of nice that they decided to add a backstory for each of the villains. However, I do wish that they were more creative with them, for most of them fall into the rejection trope, except for Raleigh and the fifth member, Clockwork. And hold your seats, because we'll get the Clockwork eventually. At its core, the gameplay of Sly Cooper is very similar to Crash Bandicoot. You run in a straight path, defeating enemies while coming across minor stealth elements such as searchlights and flashlight guns. Definitely is not Metal Gear Solid. There are a lot of different types of collectibles within Sly Cooper. These include clue bottles, which after you open all of them, unlock a certain power-up for Sly based off of one of his ancestors in the Thievius.
6, 6, 7. Oh, you're lucky, Sly. This page features Karen Cooper-Giwa's coin magnet technique.
Of course, the other sort of addition that this game has are the time trial mode, in which you have to complete a level in a certain amount of time. Now, these time trials can be very difficult and rather annoying, however, it is very rewarding with what they give you for beating them. For you get developer commentary from Sucker Punch every time you defeat
trash. Like some breakables, but some not. And it was really sort of dissatisfying to play.
And then
But yeah, for the most part, the main objective of each level is to collect the level key and collect enough keys in order to unlock a specific gate in order to get to the next area of the level. For instance, in Raleigh's hub world, you need to destroy a power generator in order to get to the second half of the collection of levels. It is this kind of structure that I think gives Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus a rather cohesive flow to how the game plays. However, if there was one thing that bothers me, it is the minigames. So I guess I will say this, the minigames in Sly Cooper don't get too much in the way. However, if there was one minigame that really I found to be egregious, it would be the Ms. Ruby boss fight. This Dance Dance Revolution clone really had me chucking the controller and honestly wondering why I was even doing this. Clearly, it's there to add some variety in the game, but I think it's too much of a departure from the core gameplay. Luckily with this minigame, you could tap the buttons rapidly and you don't even have to follow the rhythm if you don't want to. As long as you hit it at the right moment, you dodge the bullet just fine, as Ms. Ruby says.
Keep what I do, you'll dodge it just fine. If not, you'll get zapped.
a little voodoo Simon Says, huh? Sounds easy enough.
No, Sly. Actually, it's not. As for some of the other minigames, there's not really so much to say about them. There's defending Murray with a turret, there's racing with Murray. A lot of these minigames seem to involve Murray. I guess it's to make sure that he's not like a useless character. I mean, the other sidekick, Bentley, is usually the one who's making all the plans and telling you what to do, while Sly is doing most of the thieving. So I guess there needs to be something that Murray has to do. So these minigames, they're mildly fun. However, they're nothing compared to the core gameplay, and they just really just want you wishing to come back to playing as Sly. So after making it through 4 of the 5 levels, you finally come across the final member of the Fiendish Five, Clockwork. And initially, there isn't really too much known about him.
While looking over what little information I had on the final member of the Fiendish Five, I began to notice something. In the 4 parts of the Thievius Raccoonus recovered so far, several of the pictures depict a shadowy owl-like figure, which looks very similar to the police images of the mysterious Clockwork. Is this a strange coincidence, or is there something I'm missing?
However, the level that you make your way through to him is quite possibly one of the best in the game. After getting through a turret section and a hacking section with the van, finally come across Carmelita Fox trapped inside of a gas chamber that is heavily guarded. And here is where I really felt like the game was truly challenging me with the stealth. I guess one of the things that I kind of wish about Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus is that the stealth elements could have been more involving in the gameplay, and it never really shines until you get to the cold heart of hate. So you free Carmelita, and then you have to go through a fence level where Sly needs to reach the top of a tower while Carmelita defends him. And there's not really too much to say here other than this is the first time you play as Carmelita. And then you get to another section where you have to climb to the top of a tower while lava is rising up towards you. And I've probably died more times here than I can count. Finally, you come to the final boss against Clockwork, where he reveals that all these years he has been haunting the Cooper clan, and Sly is no exception.
So that was you in the background of all those old pictures in the Thievius Raccoonus. How old are you?
Perfection has no age.
What? You're immortal?
Revenge is the prime ingredient in the fountain of youth. I've kept myself alive for hundreds of years with a steady diet of jealousy and hate, awaiting a day when I would finally eclipse your family's thieving reputation.
Overall, I find this boss fight to be somewhat disappointing, considering that you fight most of him on the jetpack. However, the soundtrack that plays in the background, combined with the volcanic atmosphere, I think really makes for a rather epic fight, despite the fact that you are restrained by a jetpack. That was Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus. Overall, sometimes I'm not really sure what to think of this game. In my childhood, I would say that this was probably one of the better PS2 games. However, now, taking a second look at it, I must say that it hasn't quite aged as well as I thought it did. Some of this has to do with the fact that I never quite got the sense that Sly did anything new with the formula it presented. Granted, it did try to combine stealth elements and platforming together. However, I really do feel that they could have done more creative things with the stealth elements, such as what was seen in The Cold Heart of Hate. However, despite all this, the presentation, the cartoon aesthetic, and the overall story and characterization are enough for me to give Sly Cooper and the Thievius Raccoonus a recommendation. Hey to the few people who are probably going to watch this video. I hope you hit the like and subscribe button because it really makes me feel better, and I probably pissed off more than a few people with my opinion of Sly 1. Hopefully I'll be able to get to Sly 2, Sly 3, and maybe Thieves in Time, but to be honest with you, I don't really own Sly 4. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hopefully I'll be coming up with a schedule of reviews so that I could have a more consistent uploading time. And hope you enjoyed. Bye.